I'm Bonnie Quinn of Bloomberg Television, and I am absolutely delighted to be back here to preside over the Foreign Policy Association Financial Services Dinner tonight. On behalf of the chairman, Henry Fernandez, who unfortunately at the last minute couldn't make it tonight, the members of the board of the FPA and the FPA president and CEO Noel Latif, I would like to welcome you all, and of course thank you for making the night so enjoyable already. I have to say it's been a fascinating observation of people's approach to risk already, just by the way people decide to shake hands or not shake hands. It's really eye-opening. So I always marvel at Noel and the board's timing on these things for these events, because of course they're planned months and months in advance. And recent dinners, we've seen pivotal points for the global economy. We've heard from luminaries at those times in the worlds of financial markets, policymaking and central banking. Just thinking recently, we heard from the late Fed chairman, Paul Volcker. We had the LSE's Dame Manouche Safik, who is a close contender for the new governorship of the Bank of England, and Kristalina Georgieva, then at the World Bank, and now Madame Lagarde's successor, of course, at the International Monetary Fund. And that was just 3 of the luminaries in the last 12 to 18 months. Tonight, I can guarantee, will be another night of speakers to remember. First, though, let us pause for a moment for a brief reminder of the mission of this august organization founded more than 100 years ago.
It began as an ideal, shared by visionaries who saw a world where American foreign policy was debated not only in think tanks and universities, but in community centers, libraries, and homes across the country.
Klamath Falls has what is called a Great Decisions Group. There are about 15,000 of them across the country.
Military action is the only action that keeps the communists contained anywhere.
Would you go to war over Vietnam and Laos?
I certainly would do anything to find one all-out war over there.
They imagined an organization that would inform us all to shape the future. An organization dedicated to gathering the best research and offering the facts of world issues without bias. Knowledge made accessible and shared to change our world for the better.
Tonight I am speaking as a guest of the Foreign Policy Association, a nationwide organization, a distinguished organization.
People keep inquiring whether I would do it all over again. My answer is yes. The problem is no one has asked me.
I would like to express my appreciation to the Foreign Policy Association for helping bring this group together today.
Today, the FPA's flagship Great Decisions program is the largest discussion program on global affairs. Each week at community centers nationwide, participants read the Great Decisions briefing book and watch the television series before discussing and debating the most critical global issues facing America. In high schools and universities across the country, graduates of FPA's Teacher Training Institute design Great Decisions courses for their students. In their homes, millions of Americans watch the Emmy-nominated Great Decisions television series on public television, delivering essential background and diverse perspectives, challenging viewers to make their own great decisions.
I am very happy to have participated in the Great Decision programs and the work of the Foreign Policy Association. There needs to be more education in terms of what is going on abroad in order to fully understand how it affects our own people.
And in New York City, the FPA continues to attract world leaders to engage its members and the public.
I think this organization can make a major contribution to fulfilling our responsibilities as a people.
I have been for many years, long before I was in the United States Senate, a great admirer of this institution and what it's done and what it does. And I think the role it will continue to play in a very complicated world.
Through its balanced, nonpartisan programs and publications, the FPA encourages Americans to discuss and debate world issues and to participate in the foreign policy process. For a century, The Foreign Policy Association has operated under the mantra that a properly functioning democracy depends on an informed citizenry, a beacon that will illuminate our next century. Thank you for your support and for your participation.
So, as I said, tonight will be another night of speakers to remember in the middle of a week of extreme market turbulence, which necessitated the first emergency rate cut from the Federal Reserve since the great financial crisis after that unexpected viral outbreak. A Super Tuesday which whittled the number of Democratic candidates vying for the nomination to battle the incumbent president to just 2, plus Tulsi Gabbard. And let's not forget, still whirring in the background, the stress to the integration of the global economy from new trade posturing around the world. The FPA honorees operating in this new reality with deep commitment to corporate social responsibility are tonight Rob Goldstein, Chief Operating Officer of BlackRock, and Jim Herbert, founder of First Republic Bank. After dinner, we're going to hear from recipients of the Foreign Policy Association Medal, scholar Dr. Kostas Maglaros, Dean of Columbia Business School, and the man overseeing not just a vault full of appreciating gold bars this week, but also steering the Federal Reserve Bank responsible for ensuring the smooth implementation of monetary policy, the New York Fed President John Williams. So, to introduce these amazing honorees, we have a slate of guests who have also reached the pinnacle of their industries. So, let's get to our first prize. To introduce the award winner, please welcome philanthropist, scholar, and vice chair of the FPA board, Sana Sabag.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to step in for our chairman, Henry Fernandez, who could not be with us tonight, and to introduce the first recipient of the Corporate Social Responsibility Award, BlackRock, and Rob Goldstein, BlackRock's Chief Operating Officer. The Corporate Social Responsibility Award is presented to individuals and companies who are committed to good corporate citizenship in the communities they serve. BlackRock is a well-recognized leader in corporate responsibility, sustainability, investment, stewardship, transparency, inclusion, and diversity. BlackRock partners with nonprofits, startups, corporations, and its employees to promote these initiatives in communities on a global scale. In BlackRock's last annual letter to CEOs this year, the issue of climate change was identified as the defining factor in the long-term prospects of corporations. The letter tasked corporations with improving their disclosures around climate-related risk management and oversight. The byproduct of this mandate is that in order to meet these disclosure obligations, companies will have to take real actions to address climate change. In the words of our chairman, Rob has been an invaluable partner to the visionary leaders of BlackRock that have made it agent for change for corporate responsibility and sustainability in the investment industry. After graduating from SUNY College in Binghamton, Rob began his career at BlackRock in 1994 when it was a small bond management firm. As BlackRock has grown into one of the world's largest money managers, Rob has risen with it, and as a member of BlackRock's Global Executive Committee and co-chair of the Global Operating Committee, Rob has been at the forefront of BlackRock's success in identifying and driving trends that are reshaping the world's approach to climate change and sustainability. These issues are central to the mission of the Foreign Policy Association. In FPA's flagship publication, Great Decisions, which you will receive tonight in your gift bags. Climate Change is the lead essay. It gives me great pleasure to present the Foreign Policy Association's Corporate Social Responsibility Award to Rob and to BlackRock.
Put that down. Thank you. Shauna, thank you so much for that kind and generous introduction. I really enjoyed it. It could have gone on for a few more minutes. This is also the first time in my career that upon going up to the podium, I see this hand sanitizer, so people can just feel free to use that as appropriate. And I just wanted to start out by thanking the FPA, to Noel and to the rest of the directors. It is amazing to be here tonight accepting the award on behalf of BlackRock, and most importantly, on behalf of the 16,000 employees that we have at BlackRock. I'd also like to congratulate the rest of the award recipients. It's an honor to be here with you tonight and to be able to stand on this stage and address a group that has hosted such luminaries throughout history like FDR, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton. It is truly a remarkable honor. So standing here tonight, 3 months into a new year and a new decade, and in many ways a whole new world, it's safe to say that the concept of a foreign policy association and the concept of what it means to operate a global company across foreign borders in this world of March 2020, it's a lot different than what many of us, myself included, would have expected a few years ago. And there's a quote that I've hung on to and I often reflect back upon, and I've used it quite often in the past couple of months, that I really think sums up the world that we're living in today. And that quote is, "May you live in interesting times." And what's interesting about that quote is that if you do a bit of research on the history of it, you'll find that it was actually attributed to being an ancient Chinese curse disguised as a blessing. The punchline being that interesting doesn't always mean good. But if you do a bit more digging on that quote's origin, and at the risk of ruining a good story by doing too much research, which is among my specialties, I'm often criticized, stop using facts in the argument. You'll find that it was probably just made up by a British politician in the 19th century and attributed to ancient Chinese sources to add some gravitas to this political speech that he was making. And there was actually no ancient Chinese text that would summarize it. So the reality is, we are not explicitly living in the sort of world that a lot of the previous FPA speakers have had to deal with and address the association during. So I think we could certainly categorize March 2020 as an incredibly interesting time. And I'd like to say that as we look forward, times will become more interesting in certain ways, but also a lot less interesting would be quite nice. So what does corporate responsibility really mean in today's world? A world that is simultaneously characterized by this fundamental questioning and at times rebuttal of that post-World War II globalization that has defined the past 75 years, and a world that is increasingly threatened by global issues, whether it be the coronavirus, climate change, technology as both the great enabler and in many regards a great threat, fiscal and monetary policy, just countless examples. At BlackRock, we believe quite passionately that all corporations have a responsibility to operate with purpose, a fundamental reason for being that goes beyond profits or marketing, that permeates an organization so deeply and so completely that it comes through in the actions of every single person at the company. And we believe that that actually maximizes long-term value for all stakeholders, for shareholders, for employees, for clients, and for the communities that they operate within. So we believe it's our responsibility as a corporation to hold ourselves accountable to this purpose and keep it as our compass, as our North Star in all of the decisions that we make. And by doing so, we're able to continue to adapt to this interesting world, no matter what the 2020s and beyond hold. So as we think about principles, as we think about corporate purpose, it's actually quite interesting because it may sound simple, but to us, corporate responsibility is about finding your purpose, whatever it is, and making sure that everyone feels like they need to act towards it. So I will close with a quote from the late Jack Welch, which is, in real life, strategy is actually very straightforward. You pick a general direction and you implement it like hell. And I would just encourage all of us, all of you, each other, as global operators in today's increasingly complicated and interesting world that we're living in, to ensure you have your reason for being, to write it down, and to implement it like hell across your entire firm. Thank you again for this honor and having me tonight.
Thank you, and congratulations to Rob Goldstein and BlackRock, of course. So, to introduce the recipient of the next FPA Corporate Social Responsibility Award, please welcome a man who has helped shape global Wall Street for 4 decades. He was trusted counsel on regulation, deregulation, countless financial and cross-industry acquisitions and spin-offs, and the resolution of most major bank failures. His stature is unequaled. Please welcome Sullivan & Cromwell Senior Chairman H. Rogan Cohen.
Thank you very much and good evening. I am deeply honored to be asked to introduce tonight's recipient of one of our 2 Corporate Social Responsibility Awards, Jim Herbert, CEO and Chairman of First Republic Bank. If one attempted to develop a somewhat different metric, which would be the ratio of accomplishment to self-promotion of accomplishment, Jim would undoubtedly have the highest ranking in the financial services and indeed the broader business community. Jim did have the vision to recognize that an entire area of the financial services sector was unmet, and he had the commitment and the caring to translate that vision into reality for First Republic's clients, employees, and shareholders. From the de novo bank Jim founded just 35 years ago, First Republic is today the 22nd largest institution in the United States in terms of assets, and more remarkably, the 12th largest in terms of market capitalization. Really to pick up a bit with where Rob left off, after the first 2 months of this year, I'm not sure anyone will still equate 2020 with perfect vision, but Jim really did have that vision. But Jim is not being honored tonight for that extraordinary financial record, but as a true exemplar of social responsibility. I think you can define corporate social responsibility by the two questions First Republic asks in its corporate social report. One, are we taking care of our people? And two, are our communities strong? Getting to yes to these two questions is a basic tenet of the First Republic ethos and culture. And I just want to give what I consider some remarkable statistics to demonstrate that point. People are debating whether we should go to a $15 hourly minimum wage. For years, First Republic has been at a $25 hourly minimum wage. This past year, there were over 15,000 hours volunteered by First Republic employees, and 900 nonprofits were supported by First Republic with grants and contributions. Everyone talks today, quite appropriately, about diversity and inclusion as goals. But at First Republic, Jim sought to achieve those goals from the very outset. Two last statistics. Half of First Republic's senior management team are female, and 1/4 are people of color. Jim personally lives social responsibility through his philanthropy and services on the board of numerous nonprofit organizations. So to return to my original theme, the accomplishments of Jim Herbert and First Republic far exceed any words that can be used to describe them. Thank you.
That was a beautiful speech there from Raj Cohen. You know that Jim Herbert is special because he doesn't have just one speaker tonight. He actually has two. And not only that, but I did try to dig up a couple of personal anecdotes about him and failed. Everybody at First Republic who's here were tight-lipped about anything that I might be able to use. So to follow Raj and actually do the presentation of the award to Jim Herbert, will you please welcome somebody who's extraordinarily well-known and loved in the industry, Tom Michaud, Keith Breton-Woods, Chief Executive Officer and President, and of course, Director of the Foreign Policy Association.
Thank you, Vonnie, and I'm proud to be one of the two introducers and the presenter for Jim, but I was also told to be the shorter of the two, which I will certainly be. The award tonight is presented to First Republic, the Corporate Social Responsibility Award. But I think what's really unique about Jim is he's not only the chairman and CEO, but he is the founder. And we all know that many organizations take on a lot of the characteristics of its leader. And I think that that's really important to note tonight, that Jim is accepting this reward on behalf of First Republic, but how his DNA is really in the company. I've known the company for over 20 years. I have numerous stories that I could tell. What I really like is while I know Jim and I bump into First Republic people all the time, I don't necessarily start with I know Jim Herbert. I just like to meet the First Republic folks. And it seems like this organization follows the golden rule most of the time. Treat other people as you would like to be treated yourself. I'll tell one quick story. I was early in my career chairman of the audit committee of my local Red Cross chapter. And we were going through a little bit of a tricky time. And we were certainly in need of good banking services. We were in need of volunteers. There was even an interest in receiving more philanthropic support. Without any notice with me to Jim, First Republic just showed up. And I had a chance to see it really at the ground level. And so I could go on to other examples, but we at the FPA couldn't think of a better firm and a better person to receive this award tonight than Jim Herbert, and I'm proud to present to him the FPA Corporate Social Responsibility Award. Congratulations, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here among such a stunning group of people and awardees. I'm really honored and, quite frankly, a little humbled, more than a little humbled, to be introduced by Raj Cohen, who's one of the great minds on Wall Street for all these years. And Tom, thank you very, very much. Noel, thanks for you and the FPA for such a wonderful evening. If you'll allow me, I'd just take a few moments to, I thought that there's been a lot of discussion recently about corporations and in fact, what their roles are, their objectives. Do they even have a positive, or are they a negative contributor to our societies? I'd like to just talk about that for a minute if I could. We firmly believe from the beginning of First Republic that a company which is predicated on employee empowerment, well-being, intense client service, focus on service, not service, but caring about the client, and community well-being is not only a positive contributor, but it's also very good for shareholders. That's the point Rob made earlier, and we completely believe it. Let me take just a few moments, if you might. I'll digress into First Republic for just a couple of minutes, but I want to make a few points. We founded the bank 35 years ago, 7 of us in one office in San Francisco. But we had and continue to have a culture and a mission, purpose is the word Rob uses, entirely focused on exceptional, differentiated client service and client caring. The commitment to client service and corporate responsibility rests heavily, in our opinion, on taking very good care of your people and their families and our communities. These have been the pillars that have driven our growth for all these years. Since '85, when we started, we've grown almost entirely organically, no mergers really of consequence, into the 22nd largest bank in the United States and a member of the S&P 500. Some days that's good, some days it's not so good. The importance of our people, now we're 5,000 of us, was communicated in our original '85 shareholder letter. The real strength of First Republic, in addition to its capital resources, lies in the caliber and experience of its people. We take very good care of the colleagues in many ways. Raj mentioned our minimum wage. That's from about a year ago. We went to 25 years ago. We offer colleagues monthly student loan debt repayment assistance and 529 education save-up. 40%, this tells you the degree of the problem, 40% of the workforce of First Republic benefit from these 2 programs. Focusing on the people also means hiring the right and best talent that you can find anywhere, anyhow. We speak over 50 languages at the bank. 47% are female, 48% are minorities, actually, 46% of senior management, and 40% of the board is female. This broad diversity of backgrounds and opinions has been absolutely central to our success. Our client satisfaction levels, resulting from the great work of all these wonderful and diverse people, have empowered us to twice the banking industry average in terms of client satisfaction level. They really care about each other, and they really care about the clients. Taking care of our communities is a fundamental part of the DNA. We've originated $6 billion in community development loans recently. We've assisted thousands of people, underserved minority borrowers, to become homeowners. We've committed $100 million recently in San Francisco for affordable housing. We helped develop over 100,000 affordable housing units through investments. Most importantly, we have an opportunity to make a difference, and we try to take it every time we can. Importantly, we believe that nonprofits are the bedrock of our society, all kinds of nonprofits. Informational nonprofits, sharing nonprofits. We bank and lend to thousands of nonprofits. In fact, they make up 30% of all the business banking that the bank does. Our colleagues also support these nonprofits with thousands of hours, as Raj mentioned. We continually look for business opportunities that will provide further support for the health of our communities. Recent focus is the nation's student debt problem. What a problem. Since 2014, we've refinanced almost $3.5 billion of student loans for over 25,000 borrowers, reducing the average interest rate by over 40%. There are so many opportunities to help. In short, we firmly believe that caring deeply for our communities, our clients, and our colleagues. It results directly in long-term sustainable shareholder value. We also believe culture trumps strategy. Following these principles as our true north for 35 years, First Republic's enterprise value has grown from $8 million to $17 billion, a 25% per annum return. A week ago it was a little higher. Doing the right thing and strong shareholder value creation is not an accidental relationship. It is a causative one. Thank you very much for this wonderful honor.
Congratulations to Jim Herbert and to our first two wonderful awardees. Now, folks, it is time to have your food and have some lovely conversation. We have some amazing speakers coming up for you right after dinner. Thank you. The first part of the program was so good, I don't necessarily want to oversell the second part, but we all know that we have some excellent speakers coming up that we're very, very much looking forward to hearing from. And this is one of the things that I love so much about these FPA events. It's the conversation, right? Because we all get deep into conversation about all sorts of things. I won't tell you exactly what we were conversing about here, but you can imagine some of you were conversing about the same subjects as well. So now we come to the Foreign Policy Association medals. And to introduce our first recipient, please welcome the man who advances the FPA mission on a daily basis, who's absolutely critical to the FPA mission and to events like tonight. FPA President and CEO, Noel Lateef.
Firstly, let me say thank you for being here this evening. At FPA, we very much appreciate your commitment to our mission. As you saw on the clip we showed you before dinner, FPA's programming strives to reach the public at the grassroots. Our mission, to elevate public debates of pressing global issues and thereby to strengthen our democracy. The purpose bringing us together is not to impose a particular view, but to consider and weigh many views. As I flagged in my introduction to Great Decisions this year, an emergency room physician at Mount Sinai Hospital last fall was quoted as saying on the evening news, "I have to keep abreast of world news to do my job. I have to keep abreast of world news to do my job." This is no less true for those of us in education, business, banking, law, indeed almost every profession. In this election season, we would also do well to heed the warning of President Franklin Roosevelt when he observed, "Democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education." Which brings me to our next honoree, a much admired educator and an extraordinary scholar. Dr. Kostas Maglaris, the 16th Dean of Columbia Business School, pioneered the development of the school's technology and analytics curriculum, a first-of-its-kind set of courses designed to help students develop actionable insights based on big data. The curriculum encompasses more than 15 courses in areas that continue to transform the practice of business across every major sector of industry. These electives currently represent the most sought-after courses at Columbia Business School. At the time of the digital curriculum's launch, Dr. Maglaris remarked, "The next generation of business leaders will need to understand the intersection between technology and decision-making in an era of information abundance. Fluency in these areas is increasingly becoming foundational for success in the business world. Dr. Maglaris is the author of an extensive library of research articles spanning theory and application of stochastic modeling in queuing networks, service systems, quantitative pricing, and revenue management, as well as quantitative finance. Dr. Maglaris has assumed the deanship of Columbia Business School as it prepares to enter a new era of teaching, scholarly research, and community building when it moves into its new facilities on Columbia University's Manhattanville campus. For his pioneering work in preparing future generations of business leaders, the Foreign Policy Association takes great pride in presenting Dr. Kostas Maglaris with the Foreign Policy Association Medal. Dr. Maglaris.
Good evening. I first want to offer my sincere thanks for this prestigious award and thank Noel for the generous introduction and presentation. It is a true honor to be recognized from the Foreign Press Association and to be alongside distinguished leaders today and everyone that has gone through in the history of FPA. I accept this world with tremendous gratitude. Financial, modern market microstructure, the diffusion and control and spread of information over social networks, congestion pricing, these would typically be the problems or the topic areas that I would talk about. All representing my own personal research interests that are lying the intersection between engineering, mathematics, and economics. Tonight, I would have picked the spread of information over social networks, in part because the fundamental problem under that is really similar to the spread of epidemics. Understanding how control or intervention of, let's say, a marketeer in the first case, or of a government or a healthcare system in the second case, is really crucial to understanding the diffusion of that phenomenon. I will actually not talk about that today, because that would involve equations and math, and we already had dinner and a few glasses of wine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a little bit of time giving you some brief remarks about what we see in the future of business education, and in particular, what I see, as Noel said a few minutes ago, as the future that lies in the intersection between technology, business, and society. As we saw in the video earlier this evening, the Foreign Policy Association was started in 1918, towards the end of the First World War, and in the charter to really focus on problems that involve policy, the economy, and business. 2 years earlier, in 1916, Columbia Business School was founded to be a professional school to train managers that at that point in time were acutely needed in the sort of large corporations that were becoming present in the US first and then in Europe and the rest of the world. This was the time where manufacturing firms that used to have hundreds or 1,000 employees started having tens of thousands of employees or 100,000 employees, and they needed this management layer. This is what gave rise to business schools, and the business school at Columbia sort of followed around that time as well. This was the time that we refer to as the Second Industrial Revolution. Now, businesses across the world, and really the dynamic of their economic activity during that time and later on, and by that I mean which industries are growing, in which geographies, What are the key technological innovations of our times? What skills do we need to succeed? These are all the things that really played an important role in society, and businesses have played an important role in society for a long time. And they have provided opportunity, they have provided financial rewards, and in their wake, they have shaped society. If you think back, people changed, people moved, they got reskilled, and ultimately they tried to pursue these opportunities that were being presented to them. If we fast forward to the last 10 years, businesses have been seeing significant disruption from the way we move, the way we came here to attend this event, from the way we drive our car, or better yet, for some of us, the way the car drives itself, how we invest our savings, how we monitor our health in real time, and then we come up with personalized healthcare treatments, how we generate, distribute, store, and consume energy, what we eat, where our food comes from, how it's manufactured. I was in a plant in LA a few weeks ago at a company called Beyond Meat, and it was a lab. I went, it was a real lab. People with lab coats, and they were designing burgers and chicken nuggets. How we advertise tailored products and services down to the individual user. If you think about it, every industry, every facet of our lives is really being disrupted, challenged, and reimagined as we speak. What's underlying that? It's technology, data, powerful algorithms, together with a large, populous, global market with all of its complexities. And what we've seen is that the transformation of traditional industries and the birth of new ones, in particular ones that deliver digital products and services. And all of this is ushering a time of opportunity and change for all of us. And this is rapid, it's almost universal, and if you think back, it's actually still at very early stages of adoption, okay? Reflecting back to the last century, thinking back of the last 10 years, and then thinking forward in time, one thing seems pretty likely to me. The next few decades will be a period of change, of tremendous opportunity, and also uncertainty. From personalized medicine to healthcare delivery, from automation to the future of transportation, rethinking our food and water supply, climate change and its implications, and societal issues, and the list goes on. I want to briefly touch upon the societal issue comment that I made just now. We heard already twice from our two previous honorees this issue about thinking about what's the role of businesses in society. To what extent should corporations focus on addressing societal problems? What is the role of short-termism versus long-termism in crafting business strategy? How should corporations and governments act in this fast-evolving environment? What is the role and influence of technology in all of this and in the future of work? Business leaders are actively grappling with these questions, and the societal and political narrative is itself focusing on them. The ongoing dialogue, if you think about it, it really explores the rules and the boundaries within which the capitalist systems would operate to provide maximal value to society. Such questions that explore the interface between businesses and society are central to what business schools should be doing, and we should be addressing these questions through our thought leadership and education, and this is something that we're focusing strongly at Columbia. So let's step back. Disruption, opportunity, and friction. Where does business education factor in all of this? Looking back, important topics have always entered the curricula in business schools. Let's say supply chain management entered during the sort of beginning of globalization. Service operations to address really the migration of our economy from a manufacturing economy to a service economy. derivatives pricing for those of us that look at these problems, private equity, etc. Every time there is a new interesting change, things change up, down in the curriculum that we teach to students. So what, if anything, should we do differently right now? So in short, I think we need to innovate, and we need to do so continuously because things are changing fast. First, in our curriculum, following on Noel's comments, we need to expose digital literacy, the basics of programming, big data, analytics, and all of their applications in diverse industries and business functions. More importantly, for what we do in a business school, we need to actually provide the frameworks for our graduates to be able to manage and lead in these cross-functional settings. We need to put them together to work, to learn how to work with engineers, designers, creatives, all in team dynamics to actually achieve better business outcomes. To visualize this point, I'll give you a factoid related to what Noel was saying. You steal all my thunders with all my course development effort. But 5 years ago, we introduced a bunch of courses, 3 of them. One of them is in teaching MBA students how to program in Python. Another one is something about big data and databases, and a course in applied machine learning. When we launched these courses, we thought maybe we're going to have 50 students, 80 students. Currently, we have 350 students taking each one of these courses. And the reason the number is 350 is because we haven't managed to clone the professors that actually deliver the courses. The demand is there. We are just supply limited at this point in time. One thing that happened a few weeks ago is this deliberate change of our curriculum throughout time has actually led to a reclassification of our MBA and MBA degrees to be STEM degrees. The second thing that I want to say for us to focus on is really how we learn. What we need to do is we need to deepen our experiential learning opportunities that we offer to students. By experiential learning, I mean learning by doing, all right? Put the students into applied settings, have them work in real problems sponsored by companies here in the city, and really get applied knowledge out of it, and through this practicum, integrate the curriculum in the context of the work that they're doing, get exposed to dynamic businesses across industries, from luxury to retail to media to tech to finance, and then finally get exposure to senior business leaders and experience real-time decision-making that they do. Columbia is particularly blessed in that respect by being located in New York. The third thing is the job market. The place where our students go and find jobs right now is changing very rapidly. And this requires us to invest, obviously, in curriculum that I said, but importantly, it would be good for us to provide everything that we do in the university to all of our alumni. We have 48,000 alumni around the world, and we need to be able to offer to them all the courses, all the new curriculum innovations that we do, so that they can actually get reskilled and thrive in today's business ecosystem. So we're launching tomorrow something that we call Alumni Edge, the lifelong learning initiative. So essentially, we'll make all of the courses that we have in the school, we'll make them available online for our alums. Other areas that we should expand into include energy transition and sustainable development, socially responsible leadership, ethics, including, importantly, the interface between technology, ethics, and regulation. I'll more or less finish with an example, and that is, I'm pretty sure we've all experienced something like a pair of sneakers that we actually were looking at the website that seems to follow us throughout our browsing journey for a couple of weeks. This is a personalized ad that is served because we have a cookie on our device. A similar thing that happens when we actually visit a website. There is an algorithm behind that website that decides in real time what subset of their product assortment to prioritize and show to us. This happens hundreds of billions of times a day across all users. And this algorithmic, personalized assortment and recommendation decision is really similar to the following. Imagine that you walk into a physical retail store, and the minute you walk in, they tell you that you cannot look at the products in aisle 3, or you cannot visit the second floor of the store, simply because of your characteristics, your gender, your age, your race, your socioeconomic status, etc. Personalization is good, and it's helpful. And a lot of us enjoy the benefits of personalization, but we really need to look at the other side of that, and we call it algorithmic bias. All right? Now, these are just examples on how we think about things at Columbia as we prepare students for the digital future of business. So with that, I just want to thank you all for the recognition. I look forward to guiding Columbia as we try to create the new business leaders of the world, and I thank you profoundly for this distinction. Thank you.
Congratulations to Dr. Maglaras, and thank you for that lovely speech. Now, folks, we have come to basically what the headliner is tonight. I have one question. Do you all remember Tuesday morning, by any chance, this week? Well, our next guest definitely does, and I'll tell you, it's a good thing the FPA dinner was Thursday night, because if it had been Monday night, we would have had a little problem, because there was a little meeting going on behind closed doors. Our next guest was in there with his colleagues at the Fed, and we're not going to use the word emergency because I think he might object to that, but we'll just say inter-meeting meeting. That was taking place. To introduce the next recipient, we also have a wonderful guest, basically phenomenon in her own right, and I'm talking about a woman called Debbie Farrington. And she has been at the vanguard of VC investing for a long time. She co-founded Starvest Partners in 1998 after an esteemed career on Wall Street and in corporate America on several continents. We'll get her story another time. She's coming up here to talk about John Williams. Please give her a warm hand.
Thank you, Vani, very much. I am delighted to introduce our keynote speaker and our last speaker this evening, John Williams, the President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Noel, I don't know if you planned it this way or were able to forecast the recent confluence of events, but the timing really could not be more apropos to have John as our speaker tonight, given the state of the world and the focus on interest rates and Fed policy. I'm sure we are all eager to hear what John has to say this evening. Let me offer a few words about John to further whet your appetite. In addition to having served as the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco and earning degrees from prestigious institutions, including Berkeley, the London School of Economics, and Stanford, he is a prolific writer. Listed first among his research interests is Monetary Policy Under Uncertainty and Imperfect Information. I cannot think of a better interest to pursue in these uncertain times, and this evening, John and I were talking, and he said he's still waiting for monetary policy under certainty and is not optimistic. Janet Yellen, at the time of his appointment in the summer of 2018, described John as a distinguished economist who's made major contributions to the formulation of monetary policy. And another accolade that particularly impressed me, John Williams has established himself as one of the best central bankers in his generation. The Federal Reserve System is fortunate to have him within it. Other than the chair of the Federal Reserve, the head of the New York Fed may be the most important position within the Federal Reserve System. Why is this such a key job? The New York Fed is the only reserve bank with a permanent role in the supervision of the Fed's Federal Open Market Committee, its principal monetary policy making committee. The president of the New York Fed is also, by tradition, the committee's vice chair. And geography, the New York Fed plays a central role in some of the regulation of the nation's key financial institutions. And need I say, an independent Federal Reserve is critical to the effective functioning of monetary policy in our economy. What does this institution look like? I went down to Wall Street to visit John on his home turf. The New York Fed appropriately looks like and is a fortress. It connotes solidity and stability, and 30 feet below the New York City subway is stored $200 billion worth of gold, more than in Fort Knox. Think about that. As I walked down the very wide corridors of power on the way to John's office, I thought I should try to learn something personal to say about this great economist. And so, once inside his conference room, I asked if there was any anecdote that he would like me to relate about him. He thought a moment. I held my breath, and he said, yes. Before I was an economist, I worked in a pizzeria. And I have very strong views about pizza. And so, humble, brilliant, and with a sense of humor, I give you one of the best central bankers of this generation, John Williams. But first, John, I give you the Foreign Policy Medal.
Coming to New York, one of the things you learn is that people here have very strong views about pizza. Their favorite pizzeria, their favorite type of pizza. Well, thank you so much for this award. It's a genuine honor to be recognized in this way, and allow me to add my congratulations to all the other organizations and individuals that have been commended this evening. The work that you're doing, particularly in the area of corporate social responsibility, is so very important. So as was already mentioned, on Tuesday, the Federal Open Market Committee, or FOMC, lowered the target range for the federal funds rate by 0.5 percentage point. This action was in response to the evolving risks the coronavirus poses to the U.S. economy. So tonight I will use my brief time in front of you to provide some more context around that decision about our response as we look ahead. Before I give my remarks, I'm required to give the standard Fed disclaimer that the views I express today are those of my own and not necessarily anyone else in the Federal Open Market Committee or the Federal Reserve. To start, let me emphasize that the fundamentals of the U.S. economy remain strong. We've seen continued solid job gains, unemployment is at historically low levels, and we entered 2020 with very good momentum. After a year that was characterized by uncertainties, global growth appeared to be stabilizing, and geopolitical risks were receding. And monetary policy was well positioned to support the economic expansion and the achievement of the Fed's goals of maximum employment and price stability. However, during the past month, the outbreak and subsequent spread of the coronavirus has brought with it new risks to the economic outlook. Now, of course, this is first and foremost a human tragedy. My deepest sympathies are with those who've lost loved ones. The virus and the necessary scale of the response to address the public health challenge will have near-term effects on the global economy. These repercussions have been especially strong in the hardest hit countries, including China, South Korea, Japan, Italy, and Iran. And we're now also hearing reports that some businesses here in the United States are being affected by supply disruptions and weakening demand. As people take precautions, we're seeing concerns around the tourism and travel sectors in particular. Now, disease outbreaks require a multifaceted approach, and the coronavirus is no different. This is primarily a public health issue, which will be fought on the front lines by the doctors, the nurses, and healthcare professionals. Governments will also need to step in and support the healthcare response, and if needed, provide targeted relief to affected industries and workers through fiscal measures. Central banks like the Federal Reserve also have an important role to play in addressing the economic effects of the coronavirus, ensuring the financial markets function effectively, and providing support to the economy. Now, these actions cannot address the health issues, but can help manage near-term risks to the economy in a highly uncertain time. So earlier this week, the FOMC voted unanimously to lower the target range for the federal funds rate to 1 to 1.25%. This strong policy action provides meaningful support to the economy and will help sustain the economic expansion. The outlook is evolving and highly uncertain. In the weeks and months ahead, we'll continue to closely monitor developments and their implications for the economic outlook. We will use our tools and act as appropriate to support the economy. Now, as part of our response, my colleagues and I in the Federal Reserve System are coordinating with our counterparts around the world. Tuesday's phone call between G7 finance ministers and central bank governors, the subsequent statement, and policy actions by central banks are clear indications of the close alignment on the international level. Turning to the specific responsibilities of the New York Fed, we are tasked with the implementation of monetary policy. Our goals are to keep the federal funds rate within the target range and to foster stable conditions in short-term funding markets. We will ensure that the supply of reserves in the banking system remains ample, consistent with the FOMC's direction. Treasury bill purchases continue to add to the underlying level of reserves, and our repo operations are keeping reserve levels ample. And we are monitoring conditions in money markets very closely, and we remain flexible and ready to make adjustments to our operations as needed to ensure that monetary policy is effectively implemented and transmitted to financial markets and the broader economy. So I'll conclude with this. The coronavirus poses evolving risks to the U.S. economy. Our policy action this week positions us very well to support the economic expansion. We're carefully monitoring the effects of the coronavirus on the U.S. economic outlook, and we will respond as appropriate. Our focus remains trained on serving the American people by pursuing our dual goals of maximum employment and price stability. So once again, thank you very much for this evening's award.
All right. And that's all you're going to get on that. So don't ask him afterwards. He has a bevy of Fed workers surrounding him. Trust me, I've tried. No, I didn't really. I didn't. I respected the rules. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight. It was a wonderful evening. I hope you all agree with me that we had a great time and some lovely conversation and some wonderful speeches. So on behalf... And thank you to the St. Regis Hotel as well. John and all the staff are doing an amazing job. So just formally on behalf of the Foreign Policy Association, Chairman Henry Fernandez, and the board of the FPA, along with Dame Gillian Sackler as well, I would like to thank everybody for coming tonight, and please do continue to support these wonderful, wonderful events.